Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.
Curt Hopkins, CEO of MCQmarkets.com. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here, Joseph. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is an area that I've been talking about for ages, but I actually have not seen it in practice yet or heard about particular ways of this is actually done.
hmm
So here's sort of teeing it up for everyone. Recently, gold hit multiple all-time highs in its valuation. Gold prices have risen recently due to a combination of factors, including geopolitical tensions, economic uncertainty, and strong demand from central banks and individual investors. But now, gold is a new vehicle for people to be onboarded into their portfolios with this, and it's blockchain. So today, I'm very curious to hear a little more from Curt about how this might work and if it's a good idea. So, Curt, before we even go down that path, I'd love to hear a little bit about your backgrounds and what led you to this role that you're in.
Great. Yeah. So maybe just a quick bit about MCQ Markets. We're actually in the business of tokenizing and selling investment products related to collector cars. So kind of gold on wheels, if you want to think of it that way. So,
Sure.
which is a very exciting investment product, slightly different profile than gold, obviously, but typically gives investors in the past has given historic returns of 10 to 15% per year, for well
Impressive.
curated collections. So we offer those investment products, but generally, we are in the business of providing unique alternative assets for both retail and self-directed investors to invest in, but also family offices and high net worth folks.
Wow.
So, but the gold space is fascinating. I've been in and around technology, around wealth tech as well for quite a few years, and what we're building here at MCQ Markets is super interesting. But I think the gold market and more generally what I would call real world assets is a fascinating space.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, RWA, the tokenization of all assets, is something that
hmm
people have been talking about for a long time. But it seems like we've sort of turned the corner and people are
Yeah.
starting to be able to leverage it and do it through organizations like yourselves,
hmm
yours. So how does this work? Like I had an example recently where I heard about um, a Saudi prince who had a whole stash of gold,
Yeah.
and they potentially want to tokenize that gold. How would they do that? Why would they do that? Like, what are the benefits to them over just holding on to their gold in a whatever secure spot in Switzerland or whatever and having it audited? But what does that look like? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think what starts getting interesting when you talk about these real world assets that are physical, tangible, one of the great things about them is they can be a lot of fun because you can go in, you can, in a car, you can kick the tires and gold, you can pick up the gold bar and see it, yourself. But the challenge is obviously the physical space, right? It's the storage, it's the security, it's the insurance. And so that's the challenge. So I would think that a Saudi, person or prince or any a gold mining company, let's say, that had large reserves of gold, what they might want to do is to bring other people in to invest in that. And often, if they want to expand their gold holdings, what they could do is go out, or cars, could go out and get financing for that, so could go to the bank and basically use that physical asset, that gold, as collateral to take out a larger loan. And so that's possible. And people can actually literally take gold and lease it. There are companies called gold leasing companies where actually lease the gold to other companies for manufacturing purposes or all kinds of other purposes. So gold can produce some kind of yield. And so what I think people are like about the tokenization aspect is you can take this physical commodity and then you can make it more fungible, make it more what the decentralized finance people call composable, make it so you can collateralize and do more things with it. That you can, basically hedge it and leverage it up and do some more interesting financial trades with it. So that's the primary driver.
Okay, so the leasing aspect is also interesting
Mhm.
because if I'm leasing it, then am I using it for something and therefore I can't necessarily return it? How does that work?
Yeah, so many of the leasing that is happening are stuff that is really around for manufacturing purposes, for people that need to collateralize it or need that actually be on hand, like central banks, for example, and may actually use for hedging. So I think those are very specific examples. But what's interesting also about RWAs generally is that if you think about it, if you exclude stable coins, RWAs have gone from virtually nothing to well over 30 billion in
Yeah.
value in the last year. And so that's remarkable. And you think about what is driving that? Well, part of what's driving it is obviously you have these big stable coins out there like Tether or Circle, and they are holding people's crypto investments as deposits effectively and are turning that into a currency which is pegged to the dollar. And they obviously want to get yield for the current or the Bitcoin or the Ethereum they're holding on behalf of the people that are actually buying the Tether or the Circle. And so they have to have liquid reserves as well and other reserves in order to make investments on that. So part of their reserves will be obviously hard currency, part of it will be gold. But what they don't want to do is they would love to keep it like in a tokenized form so it's more easily to transfer around and you don't have to buy massive vaults, et cetera, even though I know Tether is buying vaults in Switzerland. But I think that's driving a lot of this behavior is that these guys also want to take these assets and put them in U.S. Treasuries, put them in the money markets, put them in other assets so they can make yield on that and make a return on the value they're actually sitting on. And so that's driving a
Fascinating.
lot of that behavior.
Yeah. So, a quick tangent because I'm kind of curious now. You piqued my interest. You were
Mhm.
talking a lot of shop there, which I really like. Where did you and when did you start getting involved in sort of like the crypto blockchain space?
Yeah, well, for me personally, I've been following it for good 7, 8 years, maybe longer. I've been in and out of it. Obviously, being a technologist, early days, I was fascinated by what was going on in the market. Obviously, Bitcoin, and like everyone, you first read about it, except for the very, very early guys. You read about it, you go, that can't be true. It's crazy. What are these guys,
Right.
a bunch of nutters. But then obviously when Ethereum came out and the whole concept of programmable money and the whole idea behind that, and also having been involved in fintech and had been involved in capital formation, raising money for companies, you start to see that wow, this is actually could be really different. And being a software technology guy, I'm always interested on the cutting edge of tech, and so that's what's really interesting about the space that I've been involved with for the last 7, 8 years or so, maybe even longer. I have to look back, but and the industry is wonderful and wonderfully complex. Obviously, there's a lot of problems to it, right? And the newspapers write about all the issues, people losing money, fraud, difficult to use, all that kind of stuff. But also, it's just an industry that is innovating so quickly. And it's been absolutely fascinating to watch the regulator over the last, 5+ years, all the regulators in different jurisdictions try to keep up with it, right?
Yeah.
And, because the innovation is absolutely outpacing, the kind of the regulatory creative bit that our regulators have. So yeah, so that's exciting.
No, that's great to hear. So, okay, since you mentioned it, I love cars. I don't really
Hmm.
normally have one because I live in a city that's not conducive for it. But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the sort of tokenization, fractional ownership of those cars that you're talking about. How does that work? What does it look like? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so first of all, what we're doing with the cars is we're doing fractional ownership, and that is basically taking a very nice car, like the first car that we had on our platform was a 1986 Lamborghini Countach,
Sure.
and with the beautiful Miami Vice look
Yes.
to it, with this white, with it looked like a wedge with the scissor doors that go up, and so a beautiful car. And we basically took that car and put it into a special purpose company, a LLC,
Hmm.
and that only owned one thing was that car. And then we basically take that car and then we effectively sell shares in that company, which owns that car, to the public. And we do that through a qualified offering that's an SEC, qualified offering. And so that's the way you do it. So you can start with shares, but you could also do the same thing, tokenizing it as well. And tokenizing would make it easier, give you more distribution, make it open for more people, and be able to democratize that even further. And then, of course, the other way that you can start to tokenize things is we want to store information about the car on the blockchain. So that's one of the very interesting that blockchain does. Is you can actually write something to it. It's like a database, but you can't change it. It's there and it's on a permanent public record. And so we basically can take information about the car because one can have car fraud, right? People can roll the odometer back.
Sure.
You can chop the car up. You can do all kinds of things. But thankfully in our industry as well, there's the VIN numbers. That's the vehicle identification numbers. You've got companies that specialize in who owns what, like Carfax. And so and you're able to track a lot of this stuff. So what we're also doing is taking that data and putting it on the blockchain so that it can be audited and tracked. And then, the third thing that happens is people, may have some crypto earnings that they have. And so we've partnered with Dogecoin as one of our partners in the House of Doge and one of our investors. So it's a great fun, dog memes. It was the first big meme
Right.
coin that was out there. And so people can take their Dogecoin, another crypto, and actually use it to invest in our products. So that's just the start. But over time, I would expect as the regulatory environment improves, that you will be able to take these investments and have them fully tokenized from top to bottom. And what that means is, let's say you own tokens, and we don't have this yet, but it'll be coming. Let's say you own tokens in one of our car funds, and that has a certain value. And then we can price that, and provide a price on that on a daily basis, depending on, how the card trades in auctions, etc. Then you could actually take that and you could deposit that, or what they call stake that, and then you could basically lend that to someone, and you could get yield back, or you could take it and then create another token on top, which you could reinvest and kind of lever that up. So there's these kind of very interesting products that you can do that can leverage up your investment, similar to if you think about when you buy a house, you get a mortgage, you're obviously getting hopefully the upside and the increase in the value of the house, but you're partially funding that through something else, through basically borrowing against the value of that property. So these are some of the leverage plays that you can do using these tokenized products.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense to me. So I'm kind of curious if you're able to share, if you're not able to share this, I
Mhm.
understand, but I'm kind of curious about, um, are there platforms out there right now, be it on Solana or on like Base or any of the layer twos, that it's easy for people such as yourself, like, or do you have to customize this entire solution from soup to nuts, wherever the old school thing?
Mhm.
Um, how how does this work? I mean, are there products or services out there that allow people to tokenize this with general ease?
Yeah, so I mean, clearly we as a company do specialize in the tech and specialize in building that tech as well as understanding the regulatory frameworks of both the US and other countries we operate in, Europe, UK, Middle East, for example. So we have to abide by all that. But thankfully, there's standards coming out from the industry, from the RWA industry, around how should a token behave, what characteristics does it need, especially if it's considered a security, because we need to comply with the rules of the countries we operate in,
Sure. Yeah.
and that could be knowing who your customer is, making sure there's not money laundering going on, making sure you're not dealing with known criminals, those kind of things. And so that's very important. Also, and know enough to actually invest safely, and do it wisely. So all that needs to be built into the token and how they're managed and how they're regulated. So there are all kinds of burgeoning kind of token frameworks that are coming out, all kinds of standards. There's associations, and so we're obviously working with those. Some of it we're building, so we are building in coordination a tokenization engine with
Wow.
Dogecoin, and working with others in the industry across Ethereum and Solana, et cetera. So I think that's really important that we lever the industry, but we also innovate quickly ourselves.
This is great. I mean, finally, I'm talking to someone who's like got
Mm.
boots on the ground, so to speak, who's
Yeah,
actually doing this type of thing.
yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention about either the company or what you're working on or what you see going forward here?
Well, I would encourage everyone just to go to mcqmarkets.com and check it out. Check out the cards. We got some very interesting things there. And then give us your feedback. If there's any assets that you like as an investor, as an alternative investor, that you think that we should be looking, that are really unique and exciting, and that we should start creating a market in, let us know. And we're all ears for that. And as we grow our business, we're all about offering really fantastic, unique alternative assets to our investors to invest in.
Amazing. Curt, thank you so much for your time
Great.
today. That was really
Thanks so
educational and
much,
helpful.
Joseph.
Tech Snippets Today with Joseph Raczynski.